Hello, welcome to Model 2 Lesson 2. We'll be looking at expanding single brackets. Here's the secret. Brackets are like treasure boxes. You open them up and find what's inside. In this module, we will learn how to expand brackets step by step, and soon you'll be solving longer algebraic problems with confidence. Let's dive into the lesson. First of all, we're going to be greeted by understanding the rules for expanding single brackets. This is going to give us a guideline to understanding this topic very well. So what's the first rule? Rule 1. The thing outside the bracket, when we look at the word thing, it could be any variable, it could be any number, it could be any number with a sign. But take note that the thing outside the bracket multiplies each separate term inside of the bracket. This is rule 1. So for instance, if I have this, say for instance I have 5x plus 3. So the thing outside the bracket, which is 5 in this case, multiplies each separate term in the bracket. So 5 is going to multiply x as a separate term in the bracket. And take note, this is a plus sign. This will give me 5 times x will give me 5x. And then, okay, let me solve it over here. So let me solve this over here. Okay, so let's have this. 5 times x will give me 5x. Then 5 times, remember I was saying that it's going to multiply everything in the bracket. So 5 times 3 will give me plus 15. Plus because I have a plus sign right here. So this is how to expand bracket based on the first rule. Understand, this is very important. You can pause the video and rewatch this again to understand the concept in the rules, and then we'll move on to the next rule. In rule 2, so we'll look at this example again. Just like the rule says, that the thing outside the bracket multiplies everything in the bracket. So this is going to give us 2 times 3x. 2 multiplied by 3x. 2 times 3x will give us 6x. Plus 2 times 4. This will give us 8. So therefore, the answer to this question is 6x plus 8. This is the expansion of the number 2 bracket 3x plus 4. Let's look at rule 2. What's the second rule when expanding single bracket? When the letters are multiplied together, they are just written next to each other. When letters are multiplied together, they are just written next to each other. For instance, an example, C times D gives us CD. C times D gives us CD, so you write them together. So in that same vein, A times B, what would that give you? Okay? Alright, so I'm waiting for your answer. If your guess is as right as mine, this means that A times B will give us AB. So this is it. Whether there is a sign or not, it's the same thing. So if we have minus x times minus y, this will give us, take note that minus times minus is plus, but in mathematics, because we don't write plus sign, so I'm just going to leave it there. X times y will give me xy. So the answer is xy. So this is how we can multiply letters. When they are multiplied, we bring them together. Let's look at the next lesson. Next rule. Let's look at rule 3. Remember that a times a will give us a square. Alright? Why? So in multiplication, this is what it gives us. B times b will give us b square. W times w will give us w square. Alright, so remember this. W times w square will give us w cube. Please, it's important we take note of this. So these are the rules that guides multiplication in algebra. Okay, let's look at rule 4. And while we look at rule 4 says, remember, a minus sign outside the bracket reverses all things when they are multiplied. A minus sign outside the bracket reverses all things, all the signs when they are multiplied. So by this, we mean if I have minus 3 into k plus 4 minus 3 into plus k plus 4. Remember that the sign for the k is a positive sign. So what this means is that once a minus sign multiplies anything inside, the sign reverses. So minus 3 times 4 will give us minus 3k. So this sign reverses to minus, and then this sign over here reverse to minus 2. So minus 3 times 4 will give us 12. Take note, 3 times 4 is 12. The sign inside the bracket reverses. So what sign this was positive sign, but because of the minus sign over here, it reversed, and then we'll have a negative sign now. So minus sign reverses signs. All right, take note of that. So same thing over here, right, please. So if we take a close look at this example, this will give us, so remember these rules that the sign changes the sign in the bracket. So minus 6 times 4x, this will give us minus, so this is a sign, the sign here is plus. So it reverses the sign in the bracket and it turns to minus. 6 times 4x is 24x. So you multiply the numbers and then the letters and you write them together based on the rule we looked at in rule number 2. Remember, in rule number 2, that A times B will give us AB. So therefore, 6 times 4x will give us 24x. So this is a rule that binds this, okay? Having this out of the way. So remember, the sign reverses. This sign is going to reverse to minus because we have a negative sign. Negative sign reverses all the signs in the bracket. 6 times 6 is 36. So the answer to this question is minus 24x minus 36. This brings us to more examples of solving questions with this. So let's assume that we have this to be minus 3x. So let's come back and look at this. Okay, so let's solve this and then also solve it using the negative, expanding in the negative method. So remember, the rule says that this multiplies everything in the bracket. Remember, so that's rule 1, that you multiply this with this, the first term. So while doing that, remember the second rule, that when you multiply this together, they are combined. So 3 times 4, so what is this going to give us? 3 times 4 is 12. R times Q will give us QR. So that's the first rule. There's no minus sign here, so this sign is not going to reverse. It's going to be remain the same, minus. Let's go again. So we're going to have this times this now. So let's look at that. 3 times 6 is 18. R times R will give us R squared. Remember, we looked at where we said that initially, from one of the rules, we said that A times A will give us A squared. So based on this, R times R will give us R squared. So this is a simple expansion for this equation, 3R into 4Q minus 6R. So it expands to give us 12QR minus 18R squared. Alright? So we're going to leave you to do this and then be okay. Let's work on this together. Alright, so let's work on this together and then we'll give you some examples to try. So if we look at this, what does this give us? So remember, there's a minus sign here. We have to pay attention to the rules of minus, that the signs in the bracket will reverse. So let's write this again with the sign. This gives us minus 8. So this gives us minus 8 into what we have here. what we have here is plus 2c, and this will give us minus 4d. So based on the rules that we've looked at, that when there's a minus sign, it reverses the signs inside. So by reversing, we mean this plus becomes minus and this minus become plus. So this becomes 8 times 2 is 16. So this sign changes to minus 16c. So remember, 8 times 2 is 16. Then you combine the letters. When multiplying, the result is always combined together. So this is minus. Because of this minus here, this sign is going to reverse. That is minus times minus is plus. Whenever a minus sign multiplies, all right, a bracket, this is what the rule says. And then 8 times 4 is 32, so we bring d, so it becomes 32d. So therefore our answer is minus 16c plus 32d. So this is the answer to this question, as we've seen here, and based on the rule. So everything we're doing here is basically based on the rule. So with this, we're going to come to the end of this section, where we allow you to work on this with yourself just to practice. Expand this and see what you're going to get. All right. So once you're done with this, pause the video and then you work it out yourself. Check your answers with what you have. If you're correct, then you can move on to the next lesson. But if you're not correct, please you need to go back to watch the video before you move on to the next lesson. All right. So in our next lesson, we'll be looking at module 2, lesson 2, expanding and simplifying brackets. Okay. See you in the next lesson.